Hey guys, it's Amber, and today we're going to talk about what happens once you get your house under contract. Today we're going to talk about what it means to be officially under contract. So what does that actually mean? Once the offer is accepted by the buyers, the sellers, and anyone else official that has to sign, then you are under contract. So this means that the seller and the buyers have agreed to the basic terms in the sale, including things like your purchase price, your closing date, any contingencies, who's paying what closing costs, and any other important details. So this does not mean you own the home yet, though. There are still many steps that we have to go through before the closing date, which is the day that your loan comes through or you give all of your cash, pay for the home, and you get the deed to the home. The first thing that you're responsible for as a buyer once you've signed the contract is getting your earnest money deposit turned in. This is also called the EMD, and this is like a good faith deposit. So you're showing the seller that you're giving a little bit of money to be held by a third party while the seller takes their home off the market. So that way both parties are giving up something of some value. So the seller doesn't get the money. The money is held at a third party area. It can either be the closing company, sometimes an attorney will hold it, and sometimes the real estate company holds it. So any of those are acceptable places for the earnest money to be held safely. That way the buyer doesn't have it, the seller doesn't have it, and the realtor also doesn't have it. It's in a separate escrow account. So once your offer is accepted, you turn this in. Normally in the contract, it'll have a blank space telling how many days you have. Some people will say 3 days, some put 5, some put 7. So you'll want to discuss this with your realtor making the offer for you so you know how many days you have before this money becomes due. So another thing that's good to know about this money is that if you go through with this home sale, this money is credited to you. If you back out of the home sale during something protected in the contract, then you're also able to get the money back. However, if you just leave and you don't ever message anybody, you don't tell them anything, you kind of go AWOL, then that money can be forfeited to the seller and they can try to get the money because they've removed the home and you did not fulfill your obligation in the contract. So you want to be sure that you discuss all of this with your realtor that you're working with. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop comments and I can help you with that. The next thing you're going to want to do if you're a buyer in this sale is schedule your home inspections and any inspections. You'll have an inspection time frame in your contract that your realtor has written out. So discuss with them how many days you have. Get them scheduled as soon as possible. You may think you have plenty of time, but inspectors are usually backed out at least a week. So you definitely want to get on their schedule. So you can get any kind of inspection you want as long as there is a licensed professional or you're doing the inspection yourself. This all does depend upon the state you're in. So if you're buying in a different state other than Tennessee or Virginia, you want to check with your contract and your rules and regulations and your realtor in that state. So the goal of your inspection is to not create a list of every single flaw this home has. Every home has issues, but it's just to understand what you're buying, to see if there are truly any major concerns and if there is any reason for you to back out or renegotiate what you've offered after you get a more thorough inspection. So make sure to get all of your inspections done in your timeline. So while you're turning in your earnest money deposit, getting your inspections scheduled, and talking with your realtor about how to move forward, your lender is also doing things, and you're going to be involved in those as well. So your realtor will begin processing your loan. They're going to collect information from you like updated documents. They're going to review over your financial information and prepare your file for underwriting. So you want to listen and pay attention to like emails or texts, however your lender is communicating with you, because you want to make sure that you're getting them these documents in a timely manner. When you're under contract, everything is pretty quick and time sensitive. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention and following along. You also don't want to make any big purchases. Do not finance a car. Don't open new credit cards. Don't pay things off. And actually don't do anything at all until you talk to your lender. Even paying a credit card off could really mess up the whole transaction. So make sure you're communicating with your realtor, with your lender, and you're not doing anything stupid like purchasing new items or paying things off. When your lender pre-approved you, they knew everything about your background and your credit. So don't do anything to change it and talk to them first. That's very important because you can definitely mess up the whole entire sale even by paying off a credit card, which sounds silly, but I've seen it happen. So be sure to keep communicating and to keep things the same and ask before you do anything whatsoever. Another thing that your lender does during this process is they order the appraisal. The appraisal is something that's usually paid for by the buyer, ordered by the lender, and it's going to tell the value of the home. So they hire an appraiser that goes out. Your lender picks it all, so you don't have to do anything with it, but you do pay for it, and the appraisal will go out and they look at the home. They go inside the home. They'll take photos sometimes. They'll do outside. They're not inspecting for safety, but they're just looking at the condition of the home to make sure that this house is worth whatever you've offered. So they look at the comparables. They'll go on the computer when they get back in their office. They'll run comparables and they'll see what other properties are out there for sale, under contract, and what has closed. So this way they can make sure that you've not offered too much money on the property and the lender gives you that money and then the home's really not worth that amount. And their main goal is that if you are to foreclose on this home, the lender has to do that. They don't owe extra money that it's not actually worth. So they're making sure they can give you that much money. So if this appraisal comes back and it is less than what you've offered, your lender will not give you more money. So there's a couple of different options. Usually the options are you can back out of the contract. You can try to renegotiate the price and get the sellers to come down and show them that the appraisal didn't actually show the value that you had offered, or you can also pay the difference. So in different loan types, there's also other scenarios that can happen, but those are the main ones that are common for most loan types. Another thing that happens during this process is you get homeowners insurance and you transfer over your utilities. So the homeowners insurance is usually set up around day 14 of the contract. So you'll kind of work on that with your lender. If you already have one chosen out, you'll get everything set up and you'll get it completely done so that you can have it ready that the day you're closing, your homeowners insurance starts. Your lender does have to have proof of this, and they will require that you pay a full year of your homeowners insurance up front, and that's also part of your closing cost. So we have a video about closing cost and all the different fees and costs that you can expect, so you may want to watch that. But that's all included in that ULTA statement and in your closing cost. So you'll want to be getting your homeowner's insurance set up way before you close, usually about halfway through the contract. So your utilities and things like that, you can usually get those set up like maybe a week before closing. Most places will let you call in and tell them that you're moving in on, let's say, June 1st, and then they'll have it ready to go at that point. Sometimes you can take the paperwork the day of, but you'll want to make sure you at least know who your utility companies are and you're ready so that you can go take all of that in and take your proof of ownership in and get that set up at the very latest the day of your closing. Another thing that's going to be done behind the scenes that you aren't doing but you're going to be paying your title company to do is things like title work and closing prep. So while all this stuff is happening in the background, you're getting your inspections, your lender's getting your appraisal, the title company is working on your title work. So they're going to make sure that things are squared away, like making sure the seller has the legal right to sell the property, that owner really is the right owner of the property. They're going to make sure there aren't any major issues that might need to be resolved before closing that could cause you issues in the future if you ever tried to sell, or even if you just own the property. They're going to review liens and ownership history, taxes, easements, and deed information. They're also going to be giving you wiring instructions and closing documents, which is called the final settlement statement or the ULTA statement. And these are things that at closing you review over. So you're going to make sure you want to bring your valid ID, and you want to make sure if you have any money you owe that's wired beforehand and you've reviewed all of this settlement statement before. Now, to be honest with you, a lot of times you will not get this until the day right before closing or maybe 2 days before, which can be really frustrating because you want to know all the numbers, but sometimes it just takes them all the way up until that day to get all of that ready for you. And that's very common around this area. Another thing that your lender does during this process is they order the appraisal. The appraisal is something that's usually paid for by the buyer, ordered by the lender, and it's going to tell the value of the home. So they hire an appraiser that goes out. Your lender picks it all, so you don't have to do anything with it, but you do pay for it, and the appraisal will go out, and they look at the home. They go inside the home. They'll take photos sometimes. They'll do outside. They're not inspecting for safety, but they're just looking at the condition of the home to make sure that this house is worth whatever you've offered. So they look at the comparables. They'll go on the computer when they get back in their office. They'll run comparables and they'll see what other properties are out there for sale, under contract, and what has closed. So this way they can make sure that you've not offered too much money on the property and the lender gives you that money and then the home's really not worth that amount. And their main goal is that if you are to foreclose on this home, the lender has to do that. They don't owe extra money that it's not actually worth. So they're making sure they can give you that much money. So if this appraisal comes back and it is less than what you've offered, your lender will not give you more money. So there's a couple of different options. Usually the options are you can back out of the contract. You can try to renegotiate the price and get the sellers to come down and show them that the appraisal didn't actually show the value that you had offered, or you can also pay the difference. So in different loan types, there's also other scenarios that can happen, but those are the main ones that are common for most loan types. And one of the final things you're going to do before you buy your house is your final walkthrough. This usually happens the day before. Sometimes it's the day of the closing. It just kind of depends on when the people are moving out. So this is your chance to go back through the home one last time and make sure it's in the condition it was when you first saw the property. Sometimes sellers will make repairs, so you want to check those things while you're there. Make sure they really got repaired. Make sure there's no damage from when the people moved out. So you're just checking all of this the final day, and then that will be usually the day before closing, sometimes the morning of closing, and you'll go through the home, and then you'll leave there and go to the closing company where you'll sign all of the papers. So at this point, you've almost made it. It's closing day. So on closing day, you're going to go to the closing company. You're going to sign all of the final documents. Usually the sellers are there the same day. Everyone will sign all of the documents. They're selling the home. You're buying the home. And depending on the state and the lender and the closing process, you'll usually get your keys that same day. In Tennessee, you get your keys that day, and you'll get all your deeds that day. In Virginia, everything has to be recorded before you can actually get your keys and before the seller can get their funds. So it depends on at what time of day this happens. So if you sign very late in the day, you may not really get your keys, and they won't get their money for the home until the following day when it can be recorded. So it really depends on your state. Other states may be different, but that is how Tennessee and Virginia works. So overall, this process goes really fast once you get under contract. The biggest thing you want to remember is that once your offer is accepted, we're going to go fast. There's a lot of deadlines, documents from your lender, and a lot of decisions. So check your emails. Keep your phone with you every day. You're going to be having a new task that the lender or the realtor asks you to do. But this doesn't mean anything's wrong. It's just part of the process. Your file goes to underwriting several times. Your lender may have to communicate with the realtor and change things, get things from you. You may have to send things several times. So your job is just to make sure that you have the right people guiding you and that you're able to communicate with them quickly and promptly so that you're able to move the process forward. If you're thinking about buying a home in Bristol, Tennessee, Bristol, Virginia, or any of the surrounding Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia areas, I would be happy to help you understand the process before you start so that you don't feel rushed and so that you feel more educated as you go. I know you'll feel more confident if you know it's going to happen next and you're prepared. So take a breath, leave a comment, and schedule a call with me so we can get started today. If you like this information and you want to get more information about purchasing a home in this area, you want to see some home tours or other realistic advice, don't forget to like and subscribe and schedule a consult today.